So Super Rugby Round 6, Friday games, both the home teams get the victories, bonus point victories, so a pretty bad day if you are a South African Super Rugby fan this Friday. So the first one, the Crusaders, the Bulls. There were a few tries scored, but it still wasn't a classic. It was a pretty wet game. It seemed like a pretty miserable night down in Christchurch. There were some pretty messy phases. I mean, overall the handling was probably good compared to how bad the weather was. But I mean, there were a lot of reset scrums and just the kind of things you associate with a wet weather game. The Bulls, again, like the Chiefs, against the Chiefs, they started off kind of like really on the front foot. They had the Crusaders under all kinds of pressure early on. They had all the ball. And they were making the Crusaders take a lot of penalties. But the Bulls weren't kicking at the posts. They were going to touch every time. And the maul just wasn't doing it for them. It was going nowhere fast. The Crusaders had the answer to it. After like the second or third time, it probably would have been nice to see a bit of variation. Even the commentators kind of cottoned on to that. But all the pressure didn't amount to much. And then the first time the Crusaders got a maul down the other end, they scored. So it's a hard one when you're watching a team and they're just knocking on the door, and they don't get it. The players kind of, their heads go down, they get a bit dejected. And then when the other team goes straight up the other end and score, it's just kind of salt in the wound. So it was very much one of those situations for the Bulls. The commentators were a bit strange because like Justin Marshall was always on about how you're never going to beat the All Blacks or the Crusaders or whichever New Zealand team. You're never going to beat them in threes. You're never going to beat them in threes. And then last night, for some reason, he was like, the Bulls need to kick penalties. So it was a weird one. The Bulls attack, it did look a bit lacking. When they had the ball, whether it was busting it up through the forwards or trying to spin it at the backs, just didn't seem to get going. Often they were losing ground, and I mean, it's probably credit to the Crusaders' defense. Maybe they studied the tapes of the Bulls against the Chiefs, or I don't know, but yeah, they definitely had the answer to pretty much everything the Bulls threw at them early on. Crusaders eventually did get a yellow card, so it's kind of what the Bulls missed out on against the Chiefs, despite the heavy penalty count. This penalty count was only like 5, I think, before the Crusaders got a yellow card. The Chiefs had gone 8 without a yellow card, so referee obviously more aware of how lopsided the penalty count was getting. So, but as soon as they got the yellow card, the Crusaders went down the other end and scored, a man short. So again, if you're a player and you've got the man advantage, you're looking to pile on the pressure, and then you concede points, it's another reason that your head's just going to start to drop. So yeah, it was definitely not kind of an ideal first 20 for the Bulls. They did manage to score a nice try from Ishmael from a scrum. Obviously, the extra man helped out. So the final score during the yellow card was 7 apiece. But I mean, you got to give that to the defensive team. If you got the man up, you need to be scoring more points. So the Crusaders for this game, you never really thought the Bulls were going to win it. They were pretty much in control of the whole game. They looked threatening on attack, and they didn't look like they would concede many points. I've written a note that some of the biggest cheers in this game, because like I said, it wasn't a classic. The biggest cheers from the crowd were the fans catching the ball in the stand, because apparently they had some kind of giveaway with sausages for people who could catch the ball in the stand. So that kind of is a testament to the wet weather stuff that was going on. It wasn't all highlight reel stuff. That's not to say it was a bad game, because I mean, if you're a rugby fan, you enjoy watching it when it's the flashy dry weather stuff with hard pitches, or when it's the boggy, rainy stuff. It's just a different kind of game. But yeah, it still wasn't a classic. Not a lot of flow, a lot of penalties, handling errors, but there still were a few nice moves. Like I said, Ishmael's try was nice. The second Bulls try was smart, where he was tackled, released the ball on the ground, picked it up and went straight through. More teams are doing that this season. Like, that's definitely an employed tactic. The Sun Wolves especially do it a lot, but more and more teams are doing that. Just like release the ball on the ground, pick it back up, and just go. So it's just a development, I guess, this season. Goodhue, man, is he strong. He scored a couple of really nice tries, like a forward almost. He just busted through some front rowers. It was impressive. So, but I mean, you can see from the start that it was Scott Barrett and Taylor got the Crusaders underway. It kind of is a testament to the kind of game it was. The Crusaders, for them, it's an expected win. They get the bonus point. They've not raised any eyebrows by doing that, but you know, good on them for getting it done. They needed to do that after having 2 losses, and they now travel to South Africa to play the Lions. Apparently they're flying out on Monday, so they're going to have a bit of rest beforehand and then go, rather than just go straight away. So we'll see how that goes for them. The Lions are going to have the travel factor coming back from Argentina as well, so maybe they're not too worried about that. For the Bulls, yeah, it's an expected loss. A few people kind of thought this one might be one where they could perhaps pip the Crusaders based on some of their form. If they put in an 80-minute performance, kind of like they showed us they could with the Chiefs, but for longer, it never really happened. They never really got going. It's just a disappointing loss, and yeah, their tour comes to an end with not much to show for it. So back to South Africa for them. They go home to play the Stormers, so it's a home game, but again, the Stormers will have the whole, having been in South Africa for a few weeks now, may be the better rested team, although the Bulls will have an extra day's rest. So we'll see how it goes, but they're going to need to win some home games pretty sharply because, much like the Stormers, their tour has not gone that well. Speaking of tours not going that well, the Sharks got clobbered 46-14 by the Rebels. So the Rebels are back, basically. There was questions whether their first 3 games had just been against kind of ordinary opposition and made the Rebels look good, because although the Waratahs really brought them back down to earth last week, or whether that was just kind of a blip. And right now it's looking like a blip. But equally for the Sharks, things just aren't right. Things aren't clicking, they're not flowing. They seem like a disjointed team. And it's affecting their performance because they're not able to get their game flowing, and it's man, if you're a Sharks fan, it must be really frustrating to watch. I've been there with the Blues, when they just don't look like things are right. That's where the Sharks are at the moment. There were a lot of tries, and some of those kind of almost humorous kind of tries, like Ross Haylett-Petty's try was like from semi-broken play, a prop doesn't get tackled. A guy falls off a tackle and he just kind of gets a line break and then offloads to a lock. It just doesn't, it was from pretty far out. It doesn't happen, very often in rugby. So it was kind of comical, but still, good skills. But yeah, just because it's so rare, it was an interesting one. But yeah, like I said, a lot of tries. Man, how many tries did the Rebels get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 tries to 2. Yeah, it's not a pretty sight if you're a Sharks fan, but it was really good work from the Rebels. Some of their set plays, like early on, the first 10 minutes was all Rebels. They've got a few nice little set pieces that just look sharp. They looked hard to defend. So they've been working on some stuff, and it's going to pay off for them in some games. The Sharks got yellow carded early on, I think after about 10 minutes. Kuhn Bosch got a yellow card for kind of deliberate knockdown going for an intercept. And it's that whole thing that even if you're going for it, you need to be in a position to catch it, otherwise you're going to get yellow card. And he just more stuck his hand out. So it was probably fair enough yellow card. But it was that point that seemed to wake the Sharks up, because in the first 10 minutes they were just looking like they were going to get nowhere fast. But that yellow card seemed to fire them up. They were the better team. The defense really tightened up. They put the Rebels under pressure, and they even scored a try. So that yellow card finished 7-0 to the Sharks. Like that shouldn't happen if you're the Rebels. And the Rebels are going to need to watch that, because in that first game against the Reds, they got a man up or 2 men up for a while, and they looked poor at the start of it, and then they finally got it going. But they do seem to have moments where they've got the man advantage. They don't quite seem to press as well as they should. So that's going to be something for them to work on. After that, though, like when Bosch came back on, the game progressed. The score just kind of blew out. The Rebels just kept piling on points. The Sharks did have a wee comeback with a try towards the end, but then the Rebels, having lost being in a bonus point position, just came back and scored even more. So yeah, it was a pretty niggly match. Like, the sides did not like each other a lot. There was a lot of handbag stuff, off the ball stuff, kind of unnecessary, but you know, things weren't happening. So sometimes just take your frustrations out on the opposition, I suppose. Murphy, for as talented a player he is really a pest. He's an instigator. Like, you see when the handbag incidents blow up, it's usually him that's in there somewhere. I don't know what he's saying because the microphones aren't close enough, but he must be saying some pretty nasty stuff because he seems to rile guys up. And the worst thing is, he's also a really good player. Like, you could maybe ignore him if he was just some, average player who you're just like, who are you? I don't even know you. But Murphy's got the skills and he's just an instigator. I mean, it's mind games. It's kind of mental warfare. I don't really like it, but it's, if you can get into your opponent's head and make them make stupid mistakes because they want to get back at you or something, then that's another kind of string to your bow. So yeah, he does that really well. He's always in amongst it. There was a bizarre TMO call in this game where the Sharks got done for a knock on, which seemed to be a Rebels hand in the ruck. It seemed pretty bad. Like, the commentators were confused. I was confused. The ref also called the game off like 30 seconds or 45 seconds early, only to be told, no, you still have to keep going. So it was a bit weird, but it didn't make a difference in the end. The Sharks still scored a try immediately after. It was all too late anyway. But yeah, not the best game, but for the Rebels, that's a huge result. Puts them back on the right foot. Bonus point win. Top of the Aussie Conference. Just putting pressure on the other teams to keep up. For the Sharks, man, you need to get it right, and it needs to go right quickly, because Blues next week, I mean, if the Blues have an off game and the Sharks can get things together, they could pull off a win. But right now, the Sharks are looking pretty average. So yeah, a lot to work on for them. So yeah, the Sharks got the Blues next week. Rebels host the Hurricanes, and this is going to be probably the first real big team they're playing. So we will soon see just how the Rebels are once they play the Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes are a pretty good side. Yeah, if the Rebels, because like their lineout was poor a few times in this game, and they made a few soft errors. If they do that against the Hurricanes, I feel like they're going to get punished. So we'll see how it goes. What did you guys think of the games? Did you see them? Yeah, always keen to get your comments. Appreciate the stuff that goes on in the comment section. Always love the banter, so it's good. Yeah, drop me a like if you enjoy the content. If you're kind of lurking about and watch my videos every now and again, drop me a subscribe. Appreciate it. My wife says I can get a New Jersey if I can get to 1,000. It's still a fair way off at 700 more, but hey, I don't get to buy New Jerseys very often, so that'd be pretty sweet. All right, guys. Yeah, I'll talk to you again for the review of the Saturday games probably tomorrow. See you later.